and welcome to Juniper GraceTube number 16. I am Juniper Grace, your lovely host for today. And if you are new, thank you so much for joining us. And if you are returning or old or whatever you want to say, thanks so much for coming back. I really appreciate that. You can find me and us on Ravelry as I am Juniper Grace. The group for this podcast is JuniperGraceTube on Ravelry. You can find me on Instagram as Juniper Grace, and you can find me on Twitter as GRaceFace, G-E-E Raceface. So if you had joined us for the last episode, you would know that we started reading the amazing Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, Lucy Maud Montgomery. We read chapter 1 last week, and this week we are going to jump into chapter 2. So what you want to do is you want to grab your knitting, you want to grab a delicious beverage to enjoy while I read. And I'm going to launch right in because it's a little bit longer of a chapter, this chapter 2, but I think that you will enjoy it. You ready? Okay, here we go. Alright, so chapter 2 of Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery. Matthew Cuthbert is surprised. Matthew Cuthbert and the sorrel mare jogged comfortably over the 8 miles to Bright River. It was a pretty road, running along between snug farmsteads with now and again a bit of balsamy fir wood to drive through, or a hollow where wild plums hung out their filmy bloom. The air was sweet, with the breath of many apple orchards, and the meadows sloped away in the distance to horizon mists of pearl and purple white, while the little birds sang as if it were the one day of summer in all the year. That was a quote, and I'm not sure why or where that quote came from, but I think at one point in time it might have been a very well-known quote. If anyone knows this, please let me know where the source is. So, Matthew enjoyed the drive after his own fashion, except during the moments when he met women and had to nod to them. For in Prince Edward Island, you are supposed to nod to all and sundry you meet on the road, whether you know them or not. Matthew dreaded all women except Marilla and Mrs. Rachel. He had an uncomfortable feeling that the mysterious creatures were secretly laughing at him. He may have been quite right in thinking so, for he was an odd-looking person, with an ungainly figure and long iron gray hair that touched his stooping shoulders, and a full, soft brown beard, which he had worn ever since he was 20. In fact, he had looked at 20 very much as he looked at 60, lacking a little of the grayness. When he reached Bright River, there was no sign of any train. He thought he was too early, so he tied his horse in the yard of the small Bright River Hotel and went over to the station house. The long platform was almost deserted, the only living creature in sight being a girl who was sitting on a pile of shingles at the extreme end. I wonder who that girl could be. Matthew, barely noting that it was a girl, sidled past her as quickly as possible without looking at her. Had he looked, he could hardly have failed to notice the tense rigidity and expectation in her attitude and expression. She was sitting there waiting for something or somebody, and since sitting and waiting was the only thing to do just then, she sat and waited with all her might and main. Matthew encountered the station master locking up the ticket office preparatory for going home for supper, and asked him if the 5:30 train would soon be along. "The 5:30 train has been in and gone half an hour ago," answered the brisk official. "But there was a passenger dropped off for you. A little girl. She's sitting out there on the shingles. I asked her to go into the ladies' waiting room, but she informed me gravely that she preferred to stay outside. There was more scope for the imagination, she said. She's a case, I should say." I'm not expecting a girl," said Matthew blankly. It's a boy I've come after. He should be here. Mrs. Alexander Spencer was to bring him over from Nova Scotia for me." The station master whistled. "Guess there's some mistake," he said. "Mrs. Spencer came off the train with that girl and gave her into my charge. said you and your sister were adopting her from an orphan asylum and that you'd be along for her presently. That's all I know about it, and I haven't got any more orphans concealed hereabouts." I don't understand," said Matthew helplessly, wishing that Marilla was at hand to cope with the situation. "Well, you'd better question the girl," said the station master carelessly. I dare say she'll be able to explain. She's got a tongue of her own, that's certain. Maybe they were out of boys of the brand you wanted." He walked jauntily away, being hungry, and the unfortunate Matthew was left to do that which was harder for him than bearding a lion in its den. Walk up to a girl, a strange girl, an orphan girl, and demand why she wasn't a boy. Matthew groaned in spirit as he turned about and shuffled gently down the platform towards her. She had been watching him ever since he had passed her, and she had her eyes on him now. Matthew was not looking at her, and would not have seen what she was really like if he had been, but an ordinary observer would have seen this. A child of about 11, garbed in a very short, very tight, very ugly dress of yellowish-gray wincey. She wore a faded brown sailor hat, and beneath the hat, extending down her back, were 2 braids of very thick, decidedly red hair. Her face was small, white, and thin, also much freckled. Her mouth was large, and so were her eyes that looked green in some lights and moods and gray in others. So far, the ordinary observer, an extraordinary observer, might have seen that the chin was very pointed and pronounced, that the big eyes were full of spirit and vivacity, that the mouth was sweet-lipped and expressive, that the forehead was broad and full. In short, our discerning, extraordinary observer might have concluded that no commonplace soul inhabited the body of this stray woman-child, of whom shy Matthew Cuthbert was so ludicrously afraid. Matthew, however, was spared the ordeal of speaking first, for as soon as she concluded that he was coming to her, she stood up, grasping with one thin brown hand the handle of a shabby, old-fashioned carpet-bag. The other she held out to him. "I suppose you are Mr. Matthew Cuthbert of Green Gables?" she said in a peculiarly clear, sweet voice. "I'm very glad to see you. I was beginning to be afraid you weren't coming for me, and I was imagining all the things that might have happened to prevent you. I had made up my mind that if you didn't come for me tonight, I'd go down the track to that big wild cherry tree at the bend and climb up into it to stay all night. I wouldn't be a bit afraid, and it would be lovely to sleep in a wild cherry tree all white with bloom in the moonshine, don't you think? You could imagine you were dwelling in marble halls, couldn't you? And I was quite sure you would come for me in the morning, if you didn't tonight." Matthew had taken the scrawny little hand awkwardly in his. Then and there he decided what to do. He could not tell this child with the glowing eyes that there had been a mistake. He would take her home and let Marilla do that. She couldn't be left at Bright River anyhow, no matter what mistake had been made. So all questions and explanations might as well be deferred until he was safely back at Green Gables. "I'm sorry I was late," he said shyly. "Come along, the horse is over in the yard. Give me your bag." "Oh, I can carry it," the child responded cheerfully. "It isn't heavy. I've got all my worldly goods in it, but it isn't heavy. And if it isn't carried in just a certain way, the handle pulls out. So I'd better keep it because I know the exact knack of it. It's an extremely old carpet bag. Oh, I'm very glad you've come, even if it would have been nice to sleep in a wild cherry tree. We've got to drive a long piece, haven't we? Mrs. Spencer said it was 8 miles. I'm glad because I love driving. Oh, it seems so wonderful that I'm going to live with you and belong to you. I've never belonged to anybody. Not really. But the asylum was the worst. I've only been in it 4 months, but that was enough. I don't suppose you were ever an orphan in an asylum, so you can't possibly understand what it is like. It's worse than anything you could imagine. Mrs. Spencer said it was wicked of me to talk like that, but I didn't mean to be wicked. It's so easy to be wicked without knowing it, isn't it? They were good, you know, the asylum people, but there is so little scope for the imagination in an asylum, only just in the other orphans. It was pretty interesting to imagine things about them. To imagine that perhaps the girl who sat next to you was really the daughter of a belted earl who had been stolen away from her parents in her infancy by a cruel nurse who died before she could confess. I used to lie awake at nights and imagine things like that, because I didn't have time in the day. I guess that's why I'm so thin. I am dreadful thin, ain't I? There isn't a pick on my bones. I do love to imagine I'm nice and plump with dimples in my elbows. With this, Matthew's companion stopped talking, partly because she was out of breath and partly because she had reached the buggy. Not another word did she say until they had left the village and were driving down a steep little hill, the road part of which had been cut so deeply into the soft soil that the banks, fringed with blooming wild cherry trees and slim white birches, were several feet above their heads. The child put out her hand and broke off a branch of wild plum that brushed against the side of the buggy. "Isn't it beautiful? What did that tree leaning out from the bank, all white and lacy, make you think of?" she asked. "Well, now, I don't know," said Matthew. "Why, a bride, of course. A bride all in white with a lovely misty veil. I've never seen one, but I can imagine what she would look like. I don't ever expect to be a bride myself. I'm so homely. Nobody will ever want to marry me, unless it might be a foreign missionary. I suppose a foreign missionary mightn't be very particular, but I do hope that someday I shall have a white dress. That is my highest ideal of earthly bliss. I just love pretty clothes. And I've never had a pretty dress in my life that I can remember. But of course, it's all the more to look forward to, isn't it? And then I can imagine that I'm dressed gorgeously. This morning, when I left the asylum, I felt so ashamed because I had to wear this horrid old wincey dress. All the orphans had to wear them, you know. A merchant in Hopetown last winter donated 300 yards of wincey to the asylum. Some people said it was because he couldn't sell it, but I'd rather believe that it was out of the kindness of his heart. Wouldn't you? When we got on the train, I felt as if everybody must be looking at me and pitying me, but I just went to work and imagined that I had on the most beautiful pale blue silk dress, because when you are imagining, you might as well imagine something worthwhile, and a big hat, all flowers and nodding plums, and a gold watch, and kid gloves, and boots. I felt cheered up right away, and I enjoyed my trip to the island with all my might. I wasn't a bit sick coming over in the boat. Neither was Mrs. Spencer, although she generally is. She said she hadn't time to get sick watching to see that I didn't fall overboard. She said she never saw the beat of me for prowling about. But if it kept her from being seasick, it's a mercy I did prowl, isn't it? And I wanted to see everything that was to be seen on that boat, because I didn't know whether I'd ever have another opportunity. Oh, there are a lot more cherry trees, all in bloom. This island is the bloomiest place. I just love it already, and I'm so glad I'm going to live here. I've always heard that Prince Edward Island was the prettiest place in the world, and I used to imagine I was living here, but I never really expected I would. It's delightful when your imaginations come true, isn't it? But those red roads are so funny. When we got into the train at Charlottetown, and the red roads began to flash past, I asked Mrs. Spencer what made them red, and she said she didn't know, and for pity's sake not to ask her any more questions. She said I must have asked her 1,000 already. I suppose I had too, but how are you going to find out about things if you don't ask questions? And what does make the roads red? Well, now, I don't know, said Matthew. Well, that is one of the things to find out sometime. Isn't it splendid to think of all the things there are to find out about? It just makes me feel glad to be alive. It's such an interesting world. It wouldn't be half so interesting if we knew all about everything, would it? There'd be no scope for imagination then, would there? But I am talking too much. People are always telling me I do. Would you rather I didn't talk? If you say so, I'll stop. I can stop when I make up my mind to, although it's difficult. Matthew, much to his own surprise, was enjoying himself. Like most quiet folks, he liked talkative people when they were willing to do the talking themselves and did not expect him to keep up his end of it. But he had never expected to enjoy the society of a little girl. Women were bad enough in all conscience, but little girls were worse. He detested the way they had of sidling past him timidly, with sideways glances, as if they expected him to gobble them up at a mouthful if they ventured to say a word. This was the Avonlea type of well-bred little girl. But this freckled witch was very different, and although he found it rather difficult for his slower intelligence to keep up with her brisk mental processes, he thought that he kind of liked her chatter. So he said, as shyly as usual, "Oh, you can talk as much as you like. I don't mind." "Oh, I am so glad. I know you and I are going to get along together fine. It's such a relief to talk when one wants to, and not be told that children should be seen and not heard. I've had that said to me a million times, and if I have once, and people laugh at me because I use big words. But if you have big ideas, you should have to use big words to express them, haven't you?" "Well, now, that seems reasonable," said Matthew. "Mrs. Spencer said that my tongue must be hung in the middle, but it isn't. It's firmly fastened at one end. Mrs. Spencer said your place was named Green Gables. I asked her all about it, and she said there were trees all around it. I was gladder than ever. I just love trees, and there weren't any at all about the asylum, only a few poor weeny-teeny things out in front, with little whitewashed cagey things about them. They just looked like orphans themselves, those trees did. It used to make me want to cry to look at them. I used to say to them, 'Oh, you poor little things, if you were out in a great big woods with other trees all around you, and little mosses and June bells growing over your roots, and a brook not far away, and birds singing in your branches, you could grow, couldn't you? But you can't where you are. I know just exactly how you feel, little trees.' I felt sorry to leave them behind this morning. You do get so attached to things like that, don't you? Is there a brook anywhere near Green Gables? I forgot to ask Mrs. Spencer that." "Well, now, yes, there's one right below the house." "Fancy! It's always been one of my dreams to live near a brook. I never expected I would, though. Dreams don't often come true, do they? Wouldn't it be nice if they did? But just now I feel pretty nearly perfectly happy. I can't feel exactly perfectly happy because, well, what color would you call this?" Hold on, just checking. Okay. She twitched one of her long, glossy braids over her thin shoulders and held it up before Matthew's eyes. Matthew was not used to deciding on the tints of ladies' tresses, but in this case there couldn't be much doubt. "It's red, ain't it?" he said. The girl let the braid drop back with a sigh that seemed to come from her very toes and to exhale forth all the sorrow of the ages. "Yes, it's red," she said resignedly. "Now you see why I can't be perfectly happy. Nobody could who had red hair. I don't mind the other things so much, the freckles and the green eyes and my skinniness. I can imagine them away. I can imagine that I have a beautiful rose-leaf complexion and lovely starry violet eyes, but I cannot imagine that red hair away. I do my best. I think to myself, now, my hair is a glorious black, black as the raven's wing. But all the time I know it is just plain red, and it breaks my heart. It will be my lifelong sorrow. I read of a girl once in a novel who had a lifelong sorrow, but it wasn't red hair. Her hair was pure gold rippling back from her alabaster brow." "What's an alabaster brow? I never could find out. Can you tell me?" "Well, now, I'm afraid I can't," said Matthew, who was getting a little dizzy. He felt as he had once felt in his rash youth when another boy had enticed him on the merry-go-round at a picnic. "Well, whatever it was, it must have been something nice because she was divinely beautiful. Have you ever imagined what it must feel like to be divinely beautiful?" "Well, now, no, I haven't," confessed Matthew ingenuously. "I have, often. Which would you rather be if you had the choice, divinely beautiful or dazzlingly clever, or angelically good?" "Well, now, I don't know exactly." "Neither do I. I can never decide, but it doesn't make much real difference, for it isn't likely I'll ever be either. It's certain I'll never be angelically good. Mrs. Spencer says, 'Oh, Mr. Cuthbert! Mr. Cuthbert! Mr. Cuthbert!'" That was not what Mrs. Spencer had said. Neither had the child tumbled out of the buggy, nor had Matthew done anything astonishing. They had simply rounded a curve in the road and found themselves in the avenue. The avenue, so called by the Newbridge people, was a stretch of road 400 or 500 yards long, completely arched over with huge, wide-spreading apple trees, planted years ago by an eccentric old farmer. Overhead was one long canopy of snowy, fragrant bloom. Below the boughs, the air was full of a purple twilight, and far ahead a glimpse of painted sunset sky shone like a great rose window at the end of a cathedral aisle. Its beauty seemed to strike the child dumb. She leaned back in the buggy, her thin hands clasped before her, her face lifted rapturously to the white splendor above. Even when they had passed out and were driving down the long slope to Newbridge, she never moved or spoke. Still, with rapt face, she gazed afar into the sunset west, with eyes that saw visions trooping splendidly across the glowing background. Through Newbridge, a bustling little village where dogs barked at them and small boys hooted and curious faces peered from the windows, they drove, still in silence. When 3 more miles had dropped away behind them, the child had not spoken. She could keep silence, it was evident, as energetically as she could talk. "I guess you're feeling pretty tired and hungry," Matthew ventured at last, accounting for her long visitation of dumbness. That means being quiet, for people that don't know, with the only reason he could think of. "But we haven't very far to go now, only another mile." She came out of her reverie with a deep sigh, and looked at him with the dreamy gaze of a soul that had been wandering afar, star-led. "Oh, Mr. Cuthbert," she whispered, "that place we came through, that white place, what was it?" "Well, now, you must mean the avenue," said Matthew, after a few moments' profound reflection. "It is a kind of pretty place." "Pretty? Oh, pretty doesn't seem the right word to use, nor beautiful either. They don't go far enough. Oh, it was wonderful, wonderful. It's the first thing I ever saw that couldn't be improved upon by imagination. It just satisfies me here." She put one hand on her breast. It made a queer, funny ache, and yet it was a pleasant ache. "Did you ever have an ache like that, Mr. Cuthbert?" "Well, now, I just can't recollect that I ever had. I have it lots of times, whenever I see anything royally beautiful. But they shouldn't call that lovely place the Avenue. There is no meaning in a name like that. They should call it, let me see, the White Way of Delight. Isn't that a nice imaginative name? When I don't like the names of a place or a person, I always imagine a new one and always think of them so. There was a girl at the asylum whose name was Hepzibah Jenkins, but I always imagined her as Rosalia de Vere. Other people may call that place the Avenue, but I shall always call it the White Way of Delight. Have we really only another mile to go before we get home? I'm glad and I'm sorry. I'm sorry because this drive has been so pleasant, and I'm always sorry when pleasant things end. Something still pleasanter may come after, but you never can be sure, and it's so often the case that it isn't pleasanter. That has been my experience anyhow. But I'm glad to think of getting home. You see, I've never had a real home since I can remember. It gives me that pleasant ache again, just to think of coming to a really, truly home. Oh, isn't that pretty? They had driven over the crest of a hill. Below them was a pond, looking almost like a river, so long and winding was it. A bridge spanned it midway, and from there its lower end, where an amber-hued belt of sand-hills shut it in from the dark blue gulf beyond. The water was a glory of many shifting hues, the most spiritual shadings of crocus and rose and ethereal green, with other elusive tintings for which no name has ever been found. Above the bridge the pond ran up into fringing groves of fir and maple and lay all darkly translucent in their wavering shadows. Here and there a wild plum leaned out from the bank with a white-clad girl tiptoeing to her own reflection. From the marsh at the end of the pond came the clear, mournfully sweet chorus of the frogs. There was a little gray house peering around a white apple orchard on a slope beyond, and, although it was not yet quite dark, a light was shining from one of its windows. "That's Barry's Pond," said Matthew. "Oh, I don't like that name either." "I shall call it, let me see, the Lake of Shining Waters. Yes, that is the right name for it. I know because of the thrill. When I hit on a name that suits exactly, it gives me a thrill. Do things ever give you a thrill?" Matthew ruminated. "Well, now, yes. It always kind of gives me a thrill to see them ugly white grubs that spade up in the cucumber beds. I hate the look of them." "Oh, I don't think that can be exactly the same kind of thrill. Do you think it can? There doesn't seem to be much connection between grubs and lakes of shining waters, does there? But why do other people call it Barry's Pond?" "Well, I reckon because Mr. Barry lives up there in that house. Orchard Slope's the name of his place. If it wasn't for that big bush behind it, you could see Green Gables from here. But we have to go over that bridge and round by the road, so it's near half a mile further." "Has Mr. Barry any little girls?" "Well, not so very little either, about my size. He's got one about 11. Her name is Diana." "Oh!" with a long indrawing of breath. "What a perfectly lovely name!" "Well now, I don't know, there's something dreadful heathenish about it, seems to me. I'd rather Jane or Mary or some sensible name like that. But when Diana was born, there was a schoolmaster boarding there, and they gave him the naming of her, and he called her Diana. I wish there had been a schoolmaster like that around when I was born, then. Oh, here we are at the bridge. I'm going to shut my eyes tight. I'm always afraid of going over bridges. I can't help imagining that perhaps just as we get to the middle, they'll crumple up like a jackknife and nip us. So I shut my eyes. But I always have to open them for all when I think we're getting near the middle, because you see, if the bridge did crumple up, I'd want to see it crumple. What a jolly rumble it makes. I always like the rumble part of it. Isn't it just splendid? There are so many things to like in this world. There, we're over. Now I'll look back. Good night, dear Lake of Shining Waters. I'll always say good night to the things I love, just as I would people. I think they like it. That water looks as if it was smiling at me. When they had driven up the farther hill and around a corner, Matthew said, Well, we're pretty near home now. That's Green Gables over. Oh, don't tell me, she interrupted breathlessly, catching at his partially raised arm and shutting her eyes so she might not see his gesture. Let me guess. I'm sure I'll guess right. She opened her eyes and looked about her. They were on the crest of a hill. The sun had set some time since, but the landscape was still clear in the mellow afterlight. To the west, a dark church spire rose up against a marigold sky. Below was a little valley, and beyond, a long, gently rising slope with snug farmsteads scattered along it. From one to another the child's eyes darted eager and wistful. At last they lingered on one away to the left, far back from the road, dimly white with blossoming trees in the twilight of the surrounding woods. Over it, in the stainless southwest sky, a great crystal-white star was shining like a lamp of guidance and promise. That's it, isn't it? She said, pointing. Matthew slapped the reins on the sorrel's back delightedly. Well, now, you've guessed it. But I reckon Mrs. Spencer described it so you could tell. No, she didn't. She really didn't. All she said might just as well have been about most of those other places. I hadn't any real idea what it looked like, but just as soon as I saw it, I felt it was home. Oh, it seems as if I must be in a dream. Do you know, my arm must be black and blue from the elbow up, for I've pinched myself so many times today. Every little while, a horrible sickening feeling would come over me, and I'd be so afraid it was all a dream that I'd pinch myself to see if it was real, until suddenly I remembered that even supposing it was only a dream, I'd better go on dreaming as long as I could, so I stopped pinching. But it is real, and we're nearly home. With a sigh of rapture, she relapsed into silence. Matthew stirred uneasily. He felt glad that it would be Marilla and not he who would have to tell this waif of the world that the home she longed for was not to be hers after all. They drove over Lynn's Hollow, where it was already quite dark, but not so dark that Mrs. Rachel could not see them from her window vantage, and up the hill and into the long lane of Green Gables. By the time they arrived at the house, Matthew was shrinking from the approaching revelation with an energy he did not understand. It was not of Marilla or himself. He was thinking of the trouble this mistake was probably going to make for them, but of the child's disappointment. When he thought of that rapt light being quenched in her eyes, he had an uncomfortable feeling that he was going to assist at murdering something, much the same feeling that came over him when he had to kill a lamb or calf or any other innocent little creature. The yard was quite dark as they turned into it, and the poplar leaves were rustling silkily all around it. "Listen to the trees talking in their sleep," she whispered, as he lifted her to the ground. "What nice dreams they must have." Then, holding tightly to the carpet bag, which contained all her worldly goods, she followed him into the house. Okay, that was a longer chapter. Next week it'll be a shorter chapter, but oh my gosh. Welcome to Anne of Green Gables. I'm glad that you had a chance to meet her this week. Isn't she delightful? I always wanted to be Anne of Green Gables when I was little, and I don't know, somehow reading it just makes me feel like Anne of Green Gables again. Kind of like when I was little, and I would imagine I wanted carrot red hair, but I have brown hair. But it's slightly red in the right lighting. I hold on to that I am just barely kind of ginger. My mom had red hair, like carrot red hair. I am so jealous, Mom, that you got the red hair. But yeah, and I should go dig up some old pictures of my mom with her beautiful curly red hair. You would love it. Okay, well, there we go. We made it through that part of the story. I know it makes a little bit longer of an intro to the podcast, but honestly, it's Anne of Green Gables. I think it's totally worth it. Okay, so let's jump into things. Welcome back. It's episode 16. What the heck? Here we are. Yay. Oh, I know. You can kind of see my mom's red hair in this picture. A little bit. That's when she had it short. At one point, there's a really great picture when she started teaching, like her first teacher's portrait, and she had this long, wavy red. I'll have to find it. It's beautiful. Okay, so you might notice behind me, and it is very properly propped up this time. It shall not come falling down. Can't believe I just said that out loud. Is the postcard wall of extravagant awesomeness. And that is the collection of postcards that Junipers, like you, have been sending to me in the mail. And I, left and right, I just went ahead and stuck up the other postcards that don't have a home yet because I need a bigger board. But they're up there. So I have two other ones to share with you. This one came and I think I just put it in the wrong spot. It was in my bedroom and I was like, oh no, I didn't thank anyone for this yet. Okay, so I have a Grand Canyon National Park postcard that came from Julie. And she totally wants to be pen pals, which I think is awesome, and I will totally send her something. And I don't know what her Ravelry name is, but there we go. We got a Julie from KY, Kentucky. They went on vacation to the Grand Canyon, and I want to go to the Grand Canyon so bad. That's on my bucket list of places to see. Look how beautiful it is. Don't you just want to go sit up on the top of that hill and knit? And by hill, I mean mountainous rock-like formation. Oh, update. The monkey postcard from who I just can't pronounce her name. I'm not even going to try. But she went onto our Ravelry board and was laughing because she has a great sense of humor. And she said that roughly it translates, because she is from Norway, her nickname translates to Miss Rubber Ducky or something like that. Cute, cute. Wish I could pronounce it. Okay, and then I have another one from Lola's Love Bug from White Rock Beach, British Columbia, Canada. I've been there, ladies and gentlemen. I go there quite often, actually. It's so pretty, look. Isn't that just nice? You can see the white rocks on the beach. Or, well, the giant big white rock. Anyways, that's from my neck of the woods. That's just on the mainland. Thank you so much. It's so cute. And it has a little Just a little love bug on there, and yeah, just makes me really happy. Thank you. So those two will go into the collection, probably just stuck on the window until I have a new home for them. And if you would like to add to the Juniper postcard wall of awesomeness, feel free to message me and ask for my address, and I would happily accept any postcards that you want to send me. If you go on vacation, you want to send me a postcard, please do. I would love that. Or from your hometown, or anything. Just a funny postcard of somebody knitting something that you found, or who knows. Okay. That's one thing down. Another thing we have currently going on with our podcast is a little bumblebee giveaway. And the challenge is, see these adorable little bumblebees? They've got a little, I don't think I showed it last time, but they have a little tiny, whoa, I'll put it on my face. There you go. They have a little tiny hook on them, so you can hook them onto different places. I have 3 of these to give away to lovely junipers, but the challenge is that I would love you to do something good for the bumblebees. And especially in the heat of the summer, they need water. And so I challenged you guys to make bumblebee watering dishes. You know, the ones that are like a pie plate with little pebbles in them and some water. And show me a picture, and then hopefully I can give away some bumblebees. So far, I have 1 entry. I'm so thankful. I love it, and keep it coming, because I'm not giving away 3 of the bumblebees to one person, or maybe I'll have to. But I just do something for the bumblebees, or show me a picture of what you like, some kind of bumblebee something. Like, come on, we can do this, guys. It's a really fun giveaway, and they're really cute, and they're handmade little bumblebees. Let me show you one more time. See? Don't you want a little handmade bumblebee? No, I do. Maybe I'll just keep them all for myself if you guys don't want to make your bumblebee whatever. Okay. And we also have a couple of impending things coming up on the JuniperGraceTube land, and that would be our 2 swaps that I wanted to do. One of them being the Fun Friend mitten swap, where we have one partner, you each knit a pair of mittens, you take one of those mittens, like the right mitten, mail it to each other, and then you have a mismatchy, best friendy, new friend mitten, pair of mittens. So still in the developmental stage. I'm not sure when we'll get to that. It'll probably be kind of a more mitten weather time. So go ahead and go on the Ravelry board and just kind of let me know if you're interested. So far we've got pretty good response. And then the other one that was inspired by Murio's shop, Meredith from New Brunswick, she suggested that we do a fill project bag swap. So you take a knitting project bag, you fill it up with all kinds of fun things, and swap with your buddy. Again, that's still in the developmental phase because I am bad and I haven't gotten to Meredith to talk to her about those things yet. So again, you can go ahead on the Ravelry board. We've got a little chat thread open for that one too, to let us know if you're interested. And again, it looks like there's lots of people interested, so I am super jazzed about that. I'm excited. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Okay, so then, oh, the other thing I was gonna say is I was thinking about different ideas for the podcast. And you know how sometimes like you kind of can't find inspiration, you kind of twiddle your thumbs and you think, what the heck am I gonna do or talk about? And then all of a sudden it comes in like a floodgate and you've got enough to fill like 30 podcasts, right? One of my ideas, which, well, isn't truly a genuinely brand new idea by any means, but I was just wondering if you guys have any questions for me. I kind of want to do like a favorites podcast where I just talk about my favorite things, but I'd like to know what of my favorite things you're interested in. Like, do you want to know what my favorite kind of mascara is, or nail polish, or tweezers? Well, I don't know why those all 3 things. Like, what's my favorite food? What's my favorite music? What's my, and I think it'd be really fun to kind of do like a lightning round episode where I just go, and if you want to keep track, you just need a notebook or whatever, and then you might have some ideas of like what to check out or new things to try, and get to know me a little bit better if you're interested. I don't know. So I'll open up a thread for that, and if you have a question that you want to ask me, put it in there. And I will get to that. Hopefully, I wanted to do that for maybe the next episode, but most likely the episode after that, depending on how many questions we get. I love interaction, if you can't tell. I like it when you guys interact with me. And speaking of which, I have a new interactive, amazing Instagram fun time. I took a picture of, you know, me and Tatley. Tatley, the fake tattoo company based out of New York that I'm desperately in love with. I'll show you the logo. Tatley, it's tatley.com. Because I really want a real tattoo, but I'm terrified, and so it's really fun when you have awesome fake tattoos to just fill the void. I took an Instagram picture of the 2 Tatleys that I am considering for this week. Let me put them really close. So we have what to focus on, and in the center of the circle it says happy, and this one says, oh, delicious coffee, how I love thee. And so I've asked you guys, I've put it to a vote, and let me see what you guys have said lately. I put this out just before I started reading Anne of Green Gables, so I wanted to give it some time. Oh my goodness. Okay, I think it might be a landslide. Okay. So Raven Loon says the coffee one is so cute. Mud Punch says both at the same time in different locations, which is a very good option. Mario Shop says focus on happy. Stacy Stone says happy. Brandy BJ says coffee. Man, I can't say your name. It says coffee. Bay Area Knitter says coffee. Inky077 says coffee. And then she says, hey, wait a minute. Are you podcasting? I sure hope so, Juniper Grace. She called it. She knew. She knows that if I'm doing something interactive, I'm usually podcasting. I can't say her name either. It says happy. Photospice75 says coffee. Yarnder Woman says coffee. Amy Steiner says coffee with a heart happy face, a happy face, and a coffee cup. Spin Monkey says coffee, and Rar Pounce says coffee, and I love her. She's so great. So I think coffee is going to win, but we're not there yet. I'm going to give it a little bit longer, and then I'm literally going to apply the fake tattoo on water. I don't know why I said via. On the podcast, and then you'll get to see the actual results of this interaction, which I think is probably even better than the previous interactions, which have been really fun. But I want you to get to see the actual interaction. What result? Wow, I'm stumbling over my words. I don't know what's happening. I need more coffee. Maybe I do need this tattoo on my arm. Okay, all right. One thing down. All right, so I'm trying to kind of have more regular segments, which we've talked about lots, but I haven't managed to interact, and I realized the reason that I'm not able to put these things together yet is because I haven't dreamed up really cool names for the different segments yet. They've all just been like, what's on the needles? Which, like, everybody says. And I don't want to be everybody else. I want to be Juniper Grace. And so I decided for when I chitter-chatter about myself, they're called Adventures in Juniper Graceland. Pause for effect. Isn't that cool? Take a sip of water. I'm drinking water again. It's just hot. It's so hot. It was like 26 degrees Celsius, so I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. But that's just hot for pasty white people. I am a pasty person with long curly hair, and I get way too warm. It was 26 degrees by like 9 o'clock this morning, maybe 9:30. That's early and warm. And I went and sat by the beach, the ocean, and it was nice, but then I was like, oh, I'm dying. Because I don't know, it was just too hot. So what I have been up to. So I was gonna podcast last week, and then it just didn't happen, because summer keeps happening. Summer is crazy. Summer, I don't know what it is about. I think it's because I'm not like working a steady 9-to-5 job where I've like sold my soul to that company and I can't get any time off. Now I'm actually able to do stuff when my husband like wants to take a break or whatever. So last week he wrote a mock UFI. So he's working towards becoming a chartered accountant, which means that he's doing school. He's been doing school and work. Now he's actually on study leave to just do school. And the culmination of which is kind of like, you know, when the lawyers sit the bar and they have that huge exam. This thing is called the UFE. I think it's Universal Form Exam or something. I don't remember exactly what it means, but it's like a crazy long exam. 3 days. 3 days writing one test. This test determines whether or not you get to be a chartered accountant or you get to try again and write the test again. So of course it goes to show that they would probably get a person to practice the actual exam, not the actual exam, but an exam basically the same before they actually have to write it. So that's what he did for 3 days last week, and the prize at the end of those 3 days was going camping on Salt Spring Island. Now, if you have been watching the podcast, you've heard me talk about this magical land where the hippies live and the fairies live, and it's just beautiful. I love Salt Spring Island. It is literally a 40-minute ferry ride from Victoria to Salt Spring, to Fulford Harbor. And Joel had it in his mind we were going to go camping. We have never gone camping, really, not truly and properly. Once when we were dating, we went with a group of friends, but we were only able to go up for one night and had to leave pretty early the next day. Or, I don't know, the next day. It wasn't real honest to goodness where we had to bring all the gear and we had to, you know, and definitely has never been on our own by ourselves. I love camping. Why have we not gone camping? Oh, right, because I've always been working these jobs where I can't get any time off. When I get time off, the last thing I really want to do is go camping, aside from, like, I go camping with my brownies. But we princess camp in cabins with bunk beds. Perks of being a brownie leader. Anyways, so we packed up the tent. We packed up everything, like our sleeping bags, and we have a mysterious navy blue sleeping bag that neither one of us knows who it belongs to. So if anybody out there is missing a navy blue sleeping bag, I don't know. Because I expected to unpack my red sleeping bag that I thought Joel had grabbed, but he grabbed this random blue sleeping bag that he thought was mine, and I thought was his. He slept in it. It was fine. We didn't die. But we went to Ruckle Provincial Park. And Ruckle Provincial Park used to be, back in, like, the late 1800s, early 1900s, like 1875. I can't remember the date that I read. But it was like a working farm. That's basically how the islands started. Well, that's like how the whole world started. It was all just farmland, really. You know, it wasn't all cities. It was like a fort and a bunch of farms. And so Ruckle started off as an orchard. It was a farm with an orchard with cows and pigs and sheep and all kinds of stuff. And then it kind of died out or whatever. But the involvement in the community that the dude, Mr. Ruckle, had was so great, and he made such an impact in the life and the community of Salt Spring Island that they decided to preserve parts of his farm as like a heritage place. And so it's farmland kind of, and then camping ground. And the camping ground, I can't even believe. If you follow me on Instagram, you will have already seen these pictures. But we camped right on the ocean. Like, I can't throw, and I could have thrown a rock in the ocean from where our tent was set up. Let me find a picture here. Okay, yeah, this is, oh yeah, you're not going to show, are you? Okay, if I just hold it, will it focus? Okay, well, the white shiny stuff, there we go. Okay, it's on a tilt, but you can kind of see it. There's our tent, there's our chairs, and there's the ocean. We went to sleep with the sound of waves crashing. All along, like where the campsite was, where the ocean, that part of the ocean we were on, is the ferry route. So every hour and a half we saw a ferry heading to Vancouver and a ferry heading from Vancouver back to Victoria, as well as the little ones that hopped to the different Gulf Islands. It was so freaking cool. I seriously enjoyed it. It was beautiful. It just smelled amazing. It smelled like the ocean. It was really cool. We had an Italian couple on one side of us, like that were the sites were pretty close together. So one side we had this Italian couple that were speaking Italian. Oh, it was beautiful. It just sounds amazing to listen to that language. And then on the other side of us was this cute little young family with like 3 kids that all could climb trees, better than I could even imagine. Like, there was like a 3-year-old up a tree, and she was thrilled. Like, she was having so much fun. It just was good. It was a good way to do life for 2 days. So we stayed at the campsite, and then we would go kind of adventure on the island. And so one day we went and visited, actually both days, we went and visited the Salt Spring Island Brewing Company for some tasters and to fill a growler for Joel. We visited the little farm around the actual farm. They do have a working farm on the like mixed in with the historical site. And so there were sheep. There's also a picture of me where I found the sheep on Instagram. And they had a little farm stand where they were selling the most incredible apples. Like, I'm going to hold it kind of close. I don't know if you can see, but this is probably the most delicious apple I've ever had. So we got a bunch of those on the way home. They had a ton of turkeys that just made me think of Paula from the Dating Pipeline. And so I brought home a turkey feather. Isn't that cool? They also had, what else? Oh, so then on our way leaving the campground on Saturday, yeah, we stayed Thursday night and Friday night because it was easier to get a campsite on like the off time, not the weekend. On the way out, I found the lady that was running the working farm or running the farm stand, and I said, hey, just wondering, what do you guys do with the fleece from your sheep? And she said, oh, well, a lot of them get sold, like the darker sheep get sold because you don't have to dye the wool to enjoy it, but we might have some left in the barn. Could you come back after lunch and get some? You can pick it up. It'll be $10 for an entire fleece. $10. And I mean, it's not processed, but I came back and this bag, it's a feed bag, holds $10 of unprocessed sheep's fleece. Smells very sheepy. It's probably going to be gross, but I've done it before where I've processed fleece before. And oh, here, this is their business card. So it's Ruckle Heritage Farm, free range and organically grown. We also got some eggs. They were just so nice, and it was so cool. And I mean, $10 for an entire fleece. So now I get to practice processing the wool. I get to practice carding because I haven't carded anything for a really long time. And I get to just play with my spinning wheel with this fiber, and it's like not a big deal if it doesn't turn out really nicely, you know, like it's good practice. I asked, and of course when we were there on Saturday we went to the market, and when I went to the market I also hopped over to the local yarn shop that I love, Elderberry Yarns, with the lovely Pat. And Pat told me that this is a kind of a more coarse, or I guess not coarse, but like I guess coarse is the word that makes sense to me, but like a coarser texture. So it's more of like an outerwear kind of wool. It's not really soft super next to the skin merino or anything. I don't even know what kind of sheep. I'll have to look up. But I've got a fleece, which I'm really excited for. And then at the Elderberry Yarn Shop, I know that I'm supposed to be on a yarn diet, but I couldn't really help myself because I really firmly believe we need to support local, and if you don't support local, then they're not going to be around. There won't be local. So I always buy something when I go to Elderberry Yarns, because not that I need to, I just have to. Okay, so first I got this Superwash Merino, and it's got her little Elderberry Yarns logo on it. She dyed this. It's actually matches my t-shirt, which we'll get to in a minute. And it's just like a superwash merino. It's like a baby yarn, and I just love the color, and I might turn it into like a baby toque and tuck it away for future, if ever, when I have kids. And then also this Ancient Arts. Not that I haven't seen this kind of stuff before, but oh my gosh, look at this. This is Ancient Arts, which is Canadian. It's called Arctic Midnight, the colorway. I love this. It just spoke to me. It's 100% superwash blue-faced Leicester. Is that how you say it? I always used to call it Leicester, but I know that's not right. Leicester wool, 4-ply fingering sock, 437 yards approximately, and yeah, the Arctic Midnight color. So I went to buy the stuff from Pat, and I was just like, these are the ones I pick. I just can't really help myself. And she's like, you know, someone told me, and this is a theory, and I think it's true, that you're influenced heavily on what you purchase in a yarn shop based on what you're wearing. So I know I wore this outfit last week, or last podcast. I don't know if you've noticed or not. I'm wearing the same clothes that I was wearing the day that I went shopping. So let me pull everything back. I wear my t-shirt and my favorite this is like my favorite dress to wear in the summertime. Look very carefully at my yarn choices. I laughed and laughed and laughed when she told me that, because it was ridiculously accurate. All I could think about were buying these two things of yarn. But what was I wearing? I fall prey to be influenced by my outfit. Yep. I think that's hilarious. So that, and then I also went to the Saturday market and I got some delicious coffee because they have Mount Maxwell coffee roasters over there. And we also got some amazing produce. We got heritage beans. Apparently this one is like a Dutch bean and the name translates to dragon's tongue. So I got some beans. I also got some lavender honey from the lavender farm. Oh, I'm so excited. I tried a little bit of it and it's got lavender florets in it, but they actually pour the honey on top of the florets to infuse like all the honey. I also got, aside from the apples, I picked up a bunch of beets. Doesn't this look amazing? I think they're organic. I really want to learn how to make borscht. And so I have this pile of beets, which I think should be enough to make 2 servings of borscht, maybe? But now I need a recipe. So if you guys know a good recipe, could you tell me? Maybe link it, send it to me via Ravelry, because I want to make borscht. Isn't that amazing? I can get more beets. I can get supplemental beets. But I think this should be enough, hey? For like a small batch, like for 2 people to eat. Yeah. So, okay, so it's almost an hour and we haven't even talked about my knitting yet. So on the island, we went to all those wonderful places. I picked up all of those wonderful fun things for us. But I also made myself a challenge and I said, okay, I've been spinning yarn for my couch and sweater like crazy. It's time to dive in and start knitting. So, I brought my pattern for my couch and sweater, and it's the dude jacket from yarnspirations.com. Just to get I like the pattern because it's got raglan shaping on the sleeves. But then I'm filling in my own animals. So I cast on, and oh my gosh, it was such a quick start to the knit. I cast on, I am about, good halfway, if not a little bit further on the back. And I am knitting. Can you tell what creature this is? It's very Alberta inspired. It is bison. It's a buffalo. It's gonna be, you can see his beard down here. It's gonna be buffalo on the back of my sweater, and I have buffalo for the front, I think, but I'm not sure if I want all buffalo. I might want a different animal on the front, and I have ideas for the sleeves. I'm knitting along with Julie Inky077, and we're doing a couch and sweater knit along, and I'm using the wool. If you haven't been watching the other episodes, I'm using the wool that I spun myself and now I'm knitting. I'm so excited for it. I think it's great. Oh, okay. But then this is under a different category. Let's just check in with Instagram for a second here. Imseems says, coffee, it's so cute. Yeah, okay, coffee wins. So I'm going to put the coffee tattoo on. I've got a little cloth here to do while I tell you about the next category. And the next category is called Knit All the Things. Because that's all I want to do. Do you ever just want to knit all the things? Like, all the things. And you see somebody else, you watch another podcast, or you see a picture on Ravelry or a picture on Instagram. I'm just cleaning my arm first. Sorry, guys. It kind of looks weird. And all you want to do is knit all of the things. That's all I want to do. I want to knit all the things. So, this category, which contains works in progress as well as what's off the needles. Oh, wait, no. Sorry. yeah, on and off the needles is now called Knit All the Things. And it also includes things that I'm inspired that I want to knit next because I'm just in love with knitting. So one of the things was my Cowichan sweater, because that's definitely what, it's a goal for us both to have them done for Maine in September. So I was showing pictures to my mom and she's like, maybe you'll have that done for your next birthday and then it'll be like a double birthday present, because I got the wool for my birthday from my mom. And I'm like, no, I want to have it done by September, by the end of September. So we'll see. I don't know. I have a bit of knitting ADHD sometimes. So that's one thing I want to do. And I think I've made a decision also for, oh, the tattoo is free. It's on. Just give me a second. Let me dry it a little bit. Here we go. Oh, I always put it on the part of my arm that's not easy to show. It says, oh, delicious coffee, how I love thee. It's got a little coffee cup. There. It's kind of far. Oh, Ava's scratching at the door. If you guys don't mind, I'm just going to pop over and grab Ava and I'll be right back, because poor little kitty needs in. Come on, come in. You've been meowing. Come in. Come in. Good girl. Sorry. Okay, so we have the tattoo on. We've talked about the Cowichan sweater. My decision for my Aggie Johnson yarn. Do you guys remember? I've been asking about this for ages. It's the Aggie Johnson Fiberworks yarn that was gifted to me by Barb for my birthday last year, because my birthday happened to fall on the Maine retreat. This year, not so much, because my birthday's in November, but that doesn't matter. I'm still going to celebrate my birthday at the Maine retreat. And I have this beautiful skein of blue yarn that needed a pattern. And I think I've settled on the Pebble Beach Shawlette. Now I can't remember who it's by. Shoot. Okay, I'll link to it in the show notes. But lots of people have been suggesting this, and you know what? I'd have to completely agree. So that's what I'm going to go for. Put it in my little basket that I bought at the market. Then, in line with the Knit All the Things, I got a package. Yay! Hey!
I thought to myself, I was pulling out that.
That's awesome.
Whatever this is something good. And I thought, if you're at your door, because I know you
that's
sit
so
here,
great, yeah.
I'll give it straight to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Oh, sweet. This podcast is never going to get done. How's my landlord? I got some mail. Rush hour in the Highlands of Scotland. I have to share this right now. Who is this from? It's from Marliese. Hi Grace, Scotland is a wonderful place. Lots of whiskey and lots of sheep. Marliese sent me a postcard from Scotland. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you, Marliese. Oh, that's so cute. Okay, well, impromptu mail. It's so nice when the mail comes. I also got a package, but that's something I ordered for my best friend's birthday, so I'm not going to show you. What was I saying? So I decided what I'm going to do with the Aggie Johnson yarn. Now, the next thing along with the Knit All the Things is, there is this amazing podcast called Twin Set Designs. It's an audio podcast done by Jan and Ellen. And Jan Hamby I had the wonderful privilege of meeting her at the Maine retreat last fall. And she is so funny and hilarious. And her twin sister, so that's where the Twin Set Jan, Twin Set Ellen comes into play. They have a podcast and I love them. And one of the things that they have going on with their podcast right now is they have Clean Off the Needles Knit Along. So I went ahead and when I was doing my deep clean of my place, remember? I collected all of my works in progress. This is a large basket and you can tell it is quite full. So I laid out all of the project bags on there and I took a picture and I posted it up on the thread that they have for the Twin Set Designs podcast Ravelry group. I took a picture and I said, okay, now this will hopefully make everyone feel really good about themselves, but I just want to say thank you for this knit along and I'm going to jump in. So I have a lot of works in progress that need to be dealt with, especially a lot of shawls. So I'm going to show you a few of the ones that I'm definitely going to get back into the groove on and get done. One of which is, remember the Hogwarts Express shawl? Knit in the plucky fingering. Yep, that was a gift from Julie. I want to finish knitting that. I was supposed to knit it for Mary's Woolly Bear 368 from the knitting dish. Supposed to knit it for her small shawl knit along, and I didn't get it finished. Another shawl is also very small. This is the Deneb shawl from Vegan Yarns, knit in vegan yarn. It's a lovely Canadian company that I met at the last Knit City in Vancouver. I love the color. I need to just knit this, and I cast it on my way to Maine. But then in Maine, got very much distracted by Magic Cake Ruffle Shawl. So I stopped knitting this. So I need to get back to this. That's where I'm at on that one. That needs to be done. While I was knitting it, my stewardess or whoever, flight attendant, she said to me, "Oh, is that a bonnet you're knitting?" I was like, "No, that's a shawl." I also have the amazing Ellery shawl by Shannon Cook that I started. It's all tangled up now. I will finish this because it's halfway done and I can't give up now. I must finish. And one other thing, my Follow Your Arrow knit along. Ugh. The problem is that I had a problem just knitting without knowing what it looked like. I'm really bad like that. It's on tiny needles. So I'd wait to see what I liked and then knit. So it needs to get done. I think I'm still on clue 2. Yeah, I'm on clue 2. I think I'm doing clue 2B, the B option, but I don't know. So I have to go back and look at that and figure it out, but I started some wonderful lace stuff happening here. It's knit with the orange. The gray is We Will Tell You All of Our Secrets by Caitlin French. She's local, well, Vancouver. And then the orange. Oh, the orange is Swan's Island. It was like a second that they had for sale at Saco River Dye Works because I guess it didn't quite come out right. So I snagged it. Really beautiful, really pretty. Now I need to get my button gear and finish that shawl. So those are the 4 that are like, please knit me and finish me, even though I'm working on my couch and sweater. And then what else I brought with me, which was also from the pile of works in progress, which hopefully will be done very soon. This was my easy knitting while I was dragging my heels and avoiding starting my couch and sweater. Sitting, just imagine, by my tent, right on the ocean, listening to the waves. I pulled out my comfort knitting, my favorite go-to knit project that I've done. This is the 4th one that I've made. This is the Stripe Study Shawl by, I believe, Vera Velamaki. It is an asymmetrical, and it's a triangular shawl. You just can't tell because I like to keep my shawls on tiny needles because I find it more manageable. Although it's not nice for when you want to hold it out and take a look at your progress. So I don't know. I don't know if you'll be able to change me. I like small cables. But I've got 10 out of the 12 navy blue stripes. It's navy blue and gray. It's knit in the Knit Picks palette yarn, which is a real just good fingering yarn. And it was so affordable. I got all the yarn for this for I think $8 because there was a sale on Knit Picks. $8. Well, maybe a little more, maybe 10 with tax or whatever, but seriously. So Stripe Study Shawl, I was working on that. I finished 2 of the stripes and they get bigger and bigger as you go along. So I'm on stripe number 11 of the 12 navy blue, and so I just need to do 1.5 stripes and then the gray border. And it's in my beautiful Knit City bag, which I am getting really excited for. It's in Vancouver. It's kind of our big yarny, wonderful thing that happens. And it's going to happen again this year, October 4th and 5th. I'm going and I'm bringing my mom. It's going to be really fun. And Stephanie Pearl McPhee will be there again. I'm hoping to go see her. So those, the couch and sweater and the Stripe Study Shawl are what I really, really worked on. But if you'll remember, I also, well, first of all, I encourage you to go join that Clean Off Your Needles knit along because it's good. It's really cathartic. It's really healthy to go through and just clear everything off and start again fresh. Or maybe decide that you don't want to finish that project and frog it and use the yarn for something else, right? Or give the yarn away because you don't even love it anymore, because sometimes that happens, right? My other wonderful work in progress, which fell on the ground, is are my August socks. This is the Dancing Dog Dye Works twist sock in the, I think, Mushroom Madness colorway. I'm not sure how I feel about these socks. I tried them twice. Once with my favorite size of needles for knitting socks, which is 2.5 millimeter needles, which I have my numbers worked out for and I really like. However, this yarn is quite a bit of a lighter fingering than normal sock yarn that I've been encountering. Nothing wrong with that. I had to go down. The needles that I actually like the look of the product on are size 0s. That is so tiny. Maybe that's like your favorite needle size, but oh my gosh, I'm a big person. I just, these, like, it's like knitting with toothpicks. Probably is. Just about. Anyways, I broke like 3 needles. Well, I broke 2 out of my 5 needles that they give you for I had Knit Picks Caspian wood needles. I really like wooden DPN needles, double pointed needles, because I find that they're warm and nicer to work with. Double pointed needles, I prefer wood because metal are slippery and they always slide out of my projects. So I prefer using the wooden ones for double pointed needles. So today I went to my local yarn store and I bought some, I believe they're Knitter's Dream or Knitter's Pride carbons. I'll have to look at the package again. But they're wooden on the body, but metal tips. Carbon, I'm guessing carbon tips. And whew, I've been knitting and I frogged back a bit because I messed up the pattern a touch. I knit right back to it. They're like so speedy. They're so sturdy. I don't think I'm going to break these ones very easily, which is really nice. And I'm doing a modified sock weight version of Tin Can Knits Rye socks. So they're socks with like basically a panel of garter stitch down the center of the socks, which I just think are really cute. And I think they have a different way to do the heels than I normally do. I love these socks. I'm just not sure how I feel. I just never knit with, I don't often knit with variegated yarn. As you can tell, every pair of socks I've done have been self-striping or solid colors. Variegated kind of freaks me out a little bit because it pools and it's not my normal thing. Like, it's not my go-to. So this is my experiment. And so far, I'm not in love yet. But I love the colors, and I love seeing the colors change as I pull out the yarn. I love seeing the colors change as I knit with them. I just have to get my head around the fact that they're not perfect stripes, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to duplicate like a perfectly matching sock. It's the other thing that freaks me out a little bit. So, wish me luck. And I think this pattern will be good because it's not just stockinette. Like, I feel like stockinette is fine, but I wanted to play it up a little bit and I wanted to kind of highlight, like I wanted to break up the monotony and try something different. So the pattern is Rye. It's a free pattern on Ravelry and it's by another one of my local people from Vancouver designers, Tin Can Knits. And you can find them on Ravelry and Etsy and all, or not. I don't know if you can find them on Etsy. But anyways, they're great. You can find Dancing Dog Dye Works on Etsy. That's where I got my yarn. So the jury's a little out on that one, and I'm not sure if I really want them to be finished by August, the end of August. But I'm not sure because I'm knitting on size 0 needles, and I've got other projects. So I might finish a sock I already have in the works, like my Hermione's Everyday Socks, which are in the basket of unfinished projects. I tell you guys, what are you going to do with me? Okay, so then, those are all kind of the things that are actually in the works. Now I want to pop over to Inspiration Corner because I've had a few people ask me, like, what inspires you? What are things that you like or find inspiring that get you really excited about life? So I picked 3 things that are really inspiring to me right now. Number 1, the podcast The Hungriest Knitter. It's another video podcast, and oh my gosh, off the top of my head, I think her name is Rachel Lindsay on Ravelry. I might totally be wrong. I'm really sorry, but I love her. She's so sweet. She reminds me a little bit of Paula from the Knitting Pipeline, just with how kind of she's not like me in your face. She's kind of just more soft-spoken, but it's like you're sitting there and you're drinking a great cup of tea. I'm usually knitting when I'm watching it, and she just tells you really interesting things. She's from Washington, D.C., and I can't believe I didn't jump on that bandwagon earlier. I just hadn't watched it, so I started watching it, and now I'm really sad that there's only 9 episodes because I want to watch a million more. I haven't finished them all yet, but she's been knitting so many fun things, and I like everything she knits. I want to knit all the things that she creates. And she also is a foodie, so she talks about different recipes she's tried or different things she's eaten, and it just makes me hungry. I can't really do seafood very well. My stomach doesn't like it, but when she talks about lobster, I want to eat the lobster. The way she describes it, you know? And so she is knitting, she was knitting, I'm not sure if she finished it or not, I haven't got to there yet, but the Guernsey wrap by Jared Flood from Brooklyn Tweed. And I realized that I have some Brooklyn Tweed in my shelter. I got it as payment for doing some knitting for a friend. Payment in yarn, yeah. And I realized I only needed 2 more skeins of it to be able to do the full Guernsey wrap, which I've wanted to do for a while. So I went ahead today to my local yarn shop. When I got my needles, I bought some. I know I'm supposed to be on a yarn diet. Shh, Mom. Stop. I got a discount, so shh. It's okay. Right? I got some more shelter in the Faded Quilt colorway. Let me hold that up for you. I love the colorways. It's a very light blue. Very nice. It's flecky and kind of heathered and very sheepy, and I'm super excited because I did not know what I was going to do with the 3 skeins that I had, so I added 2 more, and now I am good to go for the Guernsey wrap. It's going to happen. I don't know when, because I got other stuff to finish first before I'm allowed to cast on new things. But I got the yarn because I had, I filled up my little punch card. I found a bunch of punch cards, and I found one that was all filled up to give me a discount. Like, you know, when you buy this much, you get a discount. Anyways, so I used it on this. I also got a couple other things. I got my needles. Oh, you guys, don't judge. You love me. Remember? The lady at the yarn store told me that Madeline Tosh is... Oh, okay. So we're in the inspiration corner. So we have the Hungriest Knitter. Then my next touch of inspiration is the Madeline Tosh tumbler. And that leads to the last touch of inspiration, but I just wanted to tell you about this one first. Okay, so the Madeline Tosh, if you go to madelinetosh.com, because I found out about unicorn tails and I didn't know what they were, and they're like Madeline Tosh mini skeins of fingering. So there's like 52 yards in a little skein. They come in all the colors, but it's like a little sampler. You can do smaller projects or combine a lot of the mini skeins to make a bigger project, and there's a certain project, which I'll tell you about in a minute, that I have to do, but I was investigating the unicorn tails and realized I've never been to the Madeline Tosh website. I don't know. Just because I'm a podcaster doesn't mean I know everything. There's so many things. Like Anna Green Gables says, isn't it great just that there's so many experiences to have and so many things to learn about? So I went to the Madeline Tosh website and looked at the unicorn tails. No, I followed the link to her blog, which turns out it's a Tumblr, which is like Instagram on steroids. It's just tons and tons of inspiring pictures and the colors and oh my gosh, that is inspiration. I want to print off every one of those pictures and put them on my wall as if my wall were her Tumblr feed, and then I could just be inspired. So beautiful, so inspiring. Yes, go to the madelinetosh.com, I guess, website, and then just click the link for the blog. It'll take you to the Tumblr, and the Tumblr is awesome. And Tumblr basically is like a blog roll of pictures, kind of like Pinterest, but little, I don't know, one of those. So I was at the shop today, and I was talking to one of the owners of the shop, and I'm so sorry, I can't remember her name, but she's sweet, and she recognized me, which is always nice, and I don't know if it's good, but it's good. And we were chatting about it, and she just said, oh yeah, Madeline Tosh is discontinuing her Tosh lace and sticking with Prairie instead. And I was like, what? And I've not knit with the Tosh lace. So I scored a hank of the Tosh lace in Esoteric colorway. It's another blue. Can you tell I'm kind of in love with blues right now? I think that's the color for this year for me. Anyways, I'm not sure what I'll knit with it, but it had to be stash. It's just a little bit of stash enhancement, guys. So I don't know if the rumor is true, but I believe her because she's the one that does the ordering and stuff like that. And so if they're getting rid of it, it's beautiful. Because the Prairie is a lace weight, but it's like a single ply lace weight. Whereas, sorry, bow's bugging me. My Juniper bow, my little bow I make and sell. Anyways, okay, there, that's better. It's a twisty one. It's like a, I don't know how many plays. Probably 2 ply. Of course you don't tell me. But it's beautiful, and they're gonna let it go, and so I had to grab one skein to stick in the stash and get to experience, right? Okay. And then, oh guys, I'm so bad. Oh, this is a really long podcast. I'm sorry, guys. I just take it in a couple bites. It's long, but it's totally worth it. It's normal amount of talking, just a long story in the beginning. On Instagram, I found West Knits. Why didn't I find this sooner? I don't know. What's wrong with me? Stephen West, the amazing designer, has been on Instagram for ages, I'm sure. He's probably been on it longer than I've been on it, but for whatever reason, I didn't jump on the bandwagon yet until like a couple days ago. And what I found on that incredible Instagram feed, which I freaking love, was, okay, first of all, he has some amazing shawls, right? Yeah. If you don't know Stephen West, just check him out. I'm sure you have seen him or heard about him. He's super creative. He is based in Amsterdam. He's a dancer, and he designs the most ridiculously awesome things. Like, for example, his Instagram feed is killing me right now. Like, look at him. He's in a dancer pose holding neon yarn, wearing something awesome. I freaking love it. I want to be his friend and hang out with him all the time, but I don't know, he might just make me sleepy because he's just got so much energy. Anyways, he was visiting one of the many places that he loves to visit. He's been on a tour recently. Fancy Tigress, Katie knitting Vertices Unite with Madeline Tosh. And I was immediately drawn to just the colors. This is how I found out about unicorn tails. Oh my gosh, I wish this showed up better. It wasn't so flashy. Oh, there you go, you're getting it. Okay, so she has it diagrammed out how she's going to do the different vertices. She has a project bag that she has made herself, which is amazing. And then that's her starting her project. I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this now! So I was trying to buy the unicorn tails, but not all the colors are in stock, and it'd be like a lot of money, and I was kind of freaking out, but I really wanted to do it right away. I still really want to do it, so I don't know. I'm kind of like, I just don't know exactly what to do. Because it's just so awesome. But she is modular, the girl that's knitting it on Etsy. So it's like modular.etsy.com. She creates these awesome project bags, and she'll do custom project bags to match what you're knitting. But she's doing that Vertices Unite shawl, and I just loved the colors, and I went to my local yarn shop. That's part of why I went today, to see if they had the unicorn tails. They don't have them, and they don't have the colors that I wanted, all the neons, but I think I might have found a solution / my own version, but I don't know. It'll be really sheepy and different. Rowan Fine Tweed. Comes in bite-sized little balls. That's all, like, exactly what you need, I think. I found some really great colors. This is so bad. I shouldn't be buying these things. You guys should not be encouraging me, but go ahead and encourage me. And that's going to be like the, bam. So hopefully this will just be really fun. I mean, it's not neon, so I don't know what to do. I mean, I could just order and have 2 Vertices Unite. I could give one to my mom, oops, which she's probably going, yes. But it marries my favorite things. It's bright colors and geometrics, which I totally love. So I have a problem, guys. I have such a problem, but they're so beautiful. They're just so beautiful. It's the Rowan fine tweed in all the best colors. Look at that. I am so bad. But, okay, so I think we've almost talked about everything. We have the inspiration corner. We talked about knit all the things, which that part of the inspiration corner fits into the knit all the things. I'm getting to make signs for people that says knit all the things. One thing I wanted to finish with, I was going to do a mini main moment, but we ran out of time, so I'll do a Canadian word. And so this isn't so much a Canadian word as it's a Canadian phrase, okay? So what we like to say sometimes when we get really, impassioned by certain things, we'll say, take off, eh? Like if someone's like, I bought a hippopotamus, we'd be like, take off, eh? And it just kind of means like, no way, or get out of here, like when you say those things. Or sometimes it actually means take off, you hoser. Sorry, and then it goes with you hoser. So, you know how like you have little nicknames or like, oh, you're such stupid or idiot or I don't know. So the Canadian version of that is hoser. So if you're a hoser or a knob, like a doorknob, K-N-O-B, take off, you hoser, you knob. You say it like that, and it's just kind of like, no way, get out of here. Stupid. Forget it. No way. And it happens a lot. If someone actually means stupid or being a jerk, you're like, take off, hoser, you knob. Or it could just be like, no way, take off. Don't you love Canada? The other lovely nickname. No, saving that for another thing. Okay, so that's the phrase. Take off, Take off, you hoser, you knob. So I guess you've probably got so much knitting done, and you've probably had to watch this in 2 chunks because it's so long this time. But I really hope you enjoy Anne of Green Gables, and I really hope that you enjoy seeing all of the insanity and fun things that I get up to. Just keep it. I love it. So please go visit the Ravelry group. Tell me if you want to join in on the swaps. Show me what you love about bumblebees, and you get a prize for it, so it's totally worth it. Yeah, you're probably done your beverage, you're probably done so much knitting, you probably even finished one project to clean off the needles. Go visit and join that knit along. There's Ava One's out now. Classic. So I guess it's safe to return to your knitting. No, wait. Safe to return to your life as normal. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a really wonderful week, and hopefully I will see you very soon so I can get my button gear and keep myself on track to have a weekly podcast. I love you guys. Okay, bye.